community. So with that, we can get started. I will call to order this work session of the West Lynn City Council. It's Tuesday, February 3rd, 2026. The first item of business, as always, is to approve our agenda tonight. So I would entertain a motion for that.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve the agenda for the February 3rd work session of the Westland City Council.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda for the February 3rd City Council work session. Any discussion? Seeing none, you can call the roll, please.
Counselor Bonington,
Yes.
Counselor Bright,
Yes.
Council President Baumgartner,
Yes.
Counselor Groner,
Yes.
Mayor Bielostowski.
It worked.
Yes. Thank you. So the agenda passes and is approved, and that takes us to public comments. And I think we have one.
We have one comment. Jeff Gardner.
You can come on up, Jeff. Welcome. He shared with me it's his first time at a city council meeting tonight, so he's excited to give his comments. Cool. Just yeah, go ahead and then just make sure the green light's on the microphone, and Ken will help with that. And then we just state your name and city residence and take it away. You got three.
Legal name is Jeffrey Gardner, go by Jeff. My wife and I have lived in West Lynn for 22 years. And I'm here to express our view about the city council considering whether to allow marijuana dispensaries in West Lynn. And I think it's no surprise that dispensaries are not allowed in Wilsonville, Sherwood, Canby, and Lake Oswego. It's, for us at least, having lived here for so long, a quality of life issue. It's not a matter of legality. It's not a matter of the people that purchase the product. If they want to get the product, they can go across the bridge to Oregon City. It's a saturated, well-established market over there, whether it's on Main Street or up the hill on Molalla Avenue. I understand the city is concerned about revenue. I understand that. But I think the marginal revenue the city might produce from having dispensaries here, given the limited areas where they could operate, it's not going to be material in the long run. The legality, as I said, is not the issue. In our view, my wife's view and mine, West Lynn does not need dispensaries. If the city is going to move in that direction, we believe that it would be appropriate to have it on the ballot. Let the people decide the issue. And I thank you.
And thank you for your comments. Any other comments?
No other comments.
Okay. With that, we can go to mayor and council reports. And reports from community advisory groups or city business in general. It's been a couple of weeks since we last met. Start with Councilor Bright.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to comment that I attended the Vision 43 open house that was held at the Robinwood Station, and we had a very large turnout. I was very happy to see that many people there to talk about some of the zoning changes that are being proposed. There will be another open house next week on Thursday at the library community room. So anybody that missed it can attend that one. And it is very much an open house forum, but there will be staff and consultants and myself there to answer any questions.
You've done a great job as our community liaison, city council liaison to the Vision 43 project. Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
when is the next one?
A week from Thursday,
Week from Thursday.
6 p.m., I believe,
Okay.
at the library.
Thank you for that report. Council President.
Thank you. I actually had a pretty quiet week, although I did attend a public meetings training virtually for the Willamette Falls Locks Authority.
Councilor Groner.
Thank you. I attended the Transportation Advisory Board on the 21st. They're working on the transportation PSP update. They suggested that we invite TriMet to come talk to us about the bus routes and our views on that. They also suggested we ought to be discussing partnerships with Wilsonville and their bus systems. And one of the things that occurred to me is self-driving cars are becoming more of a thing. And it occurred to me that a self-driving van or bus is a possibility. I don't know anybody who sells one yet, but it certainly sounds feasible. And considering that the salary of the bus driver is a large fraction of the cost of running a bus line, that might be a possibility. So that's my comments for the day.
I just read that Waymo may come to City of Portland, the driverless cars that they have in San Francisco, right? And interesting. Thank you for that comment on transit. Councilor Bonington.
Didn't have any advisory group meetings in the last 2 weeks, but I think it's worth mentioning that I spent quite a lot of time discussing the dispensary issue with the people, mostly online. I did an interview with KATU on Friday evening about it, and it's certainly gotten a lot of attention. I appreciate public comments like yours tonight. I think that's very helpful and exactly what we were seeking. So that's all I got.
Thank you, Councilor Bonington. I attended a meeting of the Metropolitan Mayors Consortium a couple of weeks ago, and then also all of us were at the tour of the Tumwater Village site with the Grand Ronde Tribal Council and staff, and had a great time along with our city staff, taking a look at all the progress they're making on their Oregon City project and discussing future collaborations. And I posted a little post on my Westland Mayor Facebook page with some pictures from the day and my thoughts. So anybody curious can go there and take a look at that. And other than that, it's been a busy couple of weeks. With that, anything else from reports from community advisory groups? Seeing none, we can move on then. The next item is a proclamation before we get to our joint meetings. This is a Black History Month proclamation since it's February, and I will read it. Whereas the 2026 Black History Month theme, A Century of Black History Commemorations, recognizes the 100th anniversary since Dr. Carter G. Woodson's initial observance in 1926. And whereas Black History Month honors the contributions, resilience, and cultural heritage month of the Black community. And whereas this theme explores how Black History Month has transformed understanding and the status of Black people in modern society. And whereas this theme highlights the role of commemorations in building cultural identity and fostering pride within the Black community. And whereas this theme emphasizes the ongoing fight for equality and justice through historical reflection and education. And whereas this theme acknowledges the thousands of often ignored stories of Black scientists, artists, leaders, and everyday community members. And whereas this theme encourages deeper understanding of the legacy of Black history and inspires community members to recognize that telling an inclusive and accurate history strengthens our shared democracy and enriches the collective narrative of our nation. And so now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the City Council of the City of Westland that February 2026 is Black History Month, and we encourage all community members to participate in Black History Month activities and to reflect on the profound contributions of African Americans to our nation's history. Dated this day of February 3rd, 2026. Thank you, everybody. And with that, we will move to agenda item 6, which is the Police Review and Recommend Committee Annual Report and Public Meeting. And I'll turn it over to City Manager, and I see Chief Rollins back there too.
Yes, indeed. My role is very brief here. I just want to mainly thank the members of our Police Review and Recommend Committee. This group has existed since 2023 and is part of the council and the city's commitment to transparency and accountability in our police department. We have volunteers appointed to this task by the mayor and council, and they spend many hours doing this work, meeting with city staff, following the city ordinances, learning about our department, and learning about the community and our policing. And we have a great group. We thank the council for awesome appointments, and they ask a lot of questions and are doing the work that you ask. In the ordinance, there's a requirement of an annual report, and they'll be introducing that and talking it through while I have the podium. Also like to thank some of our key staff that are here. Deputy City Manager Alyssa Preston is kind of the point person. Police Department, very involved, and Chief Rollins, very present at the table, as well as our city attorney. So thanks to all the staff too. So thank you for being here tonight, and I'll turn over the time to you.
Hi, good evening. My name's Sarah Werboff. I've been in the committee now for, I think, 4 years? No, 3 years.
I'm sorry, Sarah, can you lean forward just a little bit?
Yeah.
Because it doesn't get recorded.
Okay, yeah, no
Thank you.
problem. I will note that we thought another member was going to be here to do most of the speaking, so Mary and I will be winging it a little bit tonight. But we did draft a report, which hopefully you have all reviewed, and this is just, in essence, a summary of that. You want me to start? So one of the big things that happened this year is that we had a leadership transition in the police department. Chief Mahuna retired. We thank him very much for his insight and candor and being such an active and involved participant in this process. And we are excited to work with Chief Rollins. The committee membership also changed in this past year. Our alternate member became a full member of the committee, and we have appointed a new alternate. I think that's right. And then a few people were reappointed, including me and you, I think.
Yeah, so the committee remains at 7 people
seven,
with one alternate.
Why don't you talk about this because you know more?
Sure. So I'm hitting the highlights and we're not winging it. We're well prepared. I helped write this.
Yeah.
Just for the record.
My name's Mary Carlson. I have been on the committee since its inception, so I believe that's been 3 years. One of the things that we engaged in this year were 3 different trainings. One was on labor and employment law. The other was really talking about best practices. But the one that I think was most compelling was we had a trainer come in and talk about bias. She called it implicit associations and bias training. And it was as much for us as committee members as it was for us to try and discern whether or not bias was happening within the narratives that we would evaluate when looking at these complaints. So I honestly, I found it really a very helpful training. And it's one of the benefits of serving on this committee is to get that kind of an education. So thank you for whoever set that up. I really appreciate it. Just to quickly recap, our job is essentially to look at complaints against police officers. And the way we evaluate those, our job is then to determine, are we going to move forward with additional internal investigation? Or do we recommend that it be referred outside the department for an external investigation? And the way we look at those complaints is we review the narratives, usually written by, certainly written by the complainant, but also the narratives submitted by the officers involved. In addition, we also review a lot of body cam footage. And I guess I want to reiterate what John Williams just said. It's an exhaustive process. You know, we're there for 2 hours and we generally will review 1 complaint. We're sometimes lucky to get through 1 full complaint. So I want to just reassure you, we take this job really seriously. And I think I would say we are doing a good job. As a result of all of that, we have looked at, I believe, 11 complaints in 2025. And to put that into context, there were 13,000 calls for service. So I think we can feel pretty good about that. Most of those calls were, actually there were 4,800 contacts for traffic stops. So we're trying to get a better sense of how those complaints fit into the larger picture. And so they're quite quite microscopic when you think of 13,000 calls for service. And so we also try to come up with some sort of general sense of, are we moving in the right direction? And I think as a group, we sort of concluded that the recommendations that we had made in previous years, which had to do with improving customer service, those recommendations were heard because we saw trainings that the police department underwent to address customer service. And one of those trainings was called the HEART, which actually I believe city employees also went through. And it's really a training designed to help officers de-escalate. And so the general sense was that there has been an improvement with regard to customer service. We had, I believe, just 1 or 2 additional complaints over the previous year, but that's pretty much a flat line, I would suggest. Anything to add?
To that, not really. Just that, a lot of complaints this year were resolved by body cam footage and reviewing body cam footage and comparing it to what the complainant either perceived or, noted in their complaint. And so, that is always very helpful for us to review that. And then I guess the last thing to talk about is that a lot of our focus, because we were a new committee and a new entity, was on our own internal processes. And we've implemented a couple of improvements this year that have been really great. We have a committee point person. We were pretty committed to having a non-hierarchical structure and not having a chair, but having a person who's sort of temporarily in charge has proven to be a benefit, and that position rotates quarterly. We also have a staff point person who is Alyssa, who is amazing, who keeps us all on task and sends out agendas. Really, really great improvement as well. We have, we can't take a lot of our work home with us because of confidentiality concerns, but we have a case tracking binder that we can reference when we review complaints, and we have a resource binder that has the ordinance and a lot of other useful materials. And we are trying to have more regularly scheduled meetings to continue the committee's work. I think that's about it. Yeah. And so, I guess at this point, we will take any questions you guys might have.
Wow, I'm just struck by your words and honestly powerful comments about what you're doing and just the amount of work that you're all doing just to serve the community, really. I mean, you don't get paid for it, you're volunteering, and I'm just, it's amazing. I guess my feeling is we took a leap of faith in setting up the Review and Recommend Committee. We didn't know what it would look like 5 years ago or 4 years ago when we passed the ordinance and started going through the whole process. And this couldn't have gone any better from my perspective, from what I'm hearing from you all. I'm so grateful for willingness to engage in this work. And glad it's functioning as I think City Council intended. And we're not really, as City Council, just for the public's info, we're not really involved in the committee at all, really. We just kind of set it up and picked the members based on interviews, and just you all went on your way in establishing yourselves. And so, wow. Sorry. Thank you for your great comments and your annual report. And I'm happy to open the floor up to any questions. I don't have any questions, but I just wanted to say those words. Councilor Broner.
Thank you for your review. Glad to hear that we have so relatively few complaints, and I understand really of those 11, none were viewed as serious enough to warrant further investigations. But the other half of the title of your group is recommend. Do you have any recommendations either for your group or for the Police Department of West Lynn?
I think this year, because our more immediate concerns about the customer service issues appear to be somewhat mitigated, we don't have any specific training recommendations, I don't think, that we came up with, but to continue having regular trainings on these topics, I think will be of benefit, especially as, staff changes in the department. People should be getting implicit bias training regularly. And yeah, that's, I guess, to continue that, but that was not really a focus of this year's report.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Counselor. Council President, any thoughts as one of the other folks up here who
Yes.
helped set this up?
Thank you, Mayor. I too would like to thank you all. I was just sitting here just marveling at the journey that we've taken and appreciate so much the unsung heroes who are doing this work, which is all of you. And we aren't really able to talk out explain in detail so that people can see what exactly the detail of the work is. So there's a lot of I don't know, technical details of it, which is exactly the way it's supposed to be working. So I just appreciate all of you so much for taking this on. It's very serious, and I hear and know that you're taking it very seriously. So I just am so grateful. And on behalf of the community, thank you.
I see that our speaker just showed up. Is there some? But I think we may have concluded
Yeah,
our
I think
comments.
we're basically done. So.
So thank you.
Well, would they like to, are they coming through? They're welcome to say a few words.
So I think he.
I guess
he
we
recognizes that.
got there a little bit early, 6:30, so we're supposed to start at 6:35. I'm sorry. We're too efficient today at the City Council of West Lynn.
We appreciate it.
Well, we can definitely connect with whoever it is offline and chat as well
Sure, okay.
at any time. So with that, thank you all for being here, and we look forward to continuing to see your good work.
Thank you.
And also your fellow Lewis and Clark alum, Sarah. I'm just a 1L.
Thank you.
Working through it, and yeah, thanks.
I would be interested in hearing how our staff is feeling about this. If not to put anybody on the spot, but I did find myself wondering how that's working out from a staff perspective.
This would be a fun opportunity to put Chief Rollins on the spot. I'll vamp a little bit while he comes up, and maybe Alyssa wants to come up as well. I think the key thing that I would say is the way the ordinance is written, the intention is that the volunteer members of our community are meeting with the city staff. And so we're all sitting around a table. Obviously, we do a little pre-work to get the materials together and make it easy to understand, but we're all looking at all of it together, and we have a discussion together. And you heard from the committee members, that was a little bit of a leap of faith that we all took, because we didn't know how it would go. But I have found it, generally speaking, really, really valuable. And there's always different angles being raised. Sometimes those angles are, I don't quite get it at first, and then I sort of come around and understand, and then we start digging into that side of it. And I've been really proud of the work that our staff has done to support this committee. So I would love to hear from Alyssa and Otis about this too. The police department view would certainly be interesting.
Sure. First thing I'd like to do is I would like to thank each and every one of the review and recommend committee members for the time and the effort, the devotion that they've put into this. As you said, they're volunteers, and so they're doing this work because they believe in it and they want to see the betterment for the community. So thank you very much, all of you. Greatly appreciated. I have appreciated just the robustness of the conversations that we've been able to have in this group. There are lots of different perspectives and lots of different lenses that we discuss. And certainly coming from a police background, I think it is refreshing and sometimes eye-opening to hear perspectives from people who are not involved in the law enforcement community. There are many, many different ways to look at the same situation. And everybody brings in their own experience, their own perspectives, their own ideas. And I think that as you put it all together and we discuss and we bounce ideas back and forth, there's some what ifs, there's some what about this, but I think it just allows us to look at all of these challenges from every possible angle and make sure that there isn't anything that we're missing. And so it's greatly appreciated. And I think that at the end of all of these conversations, I do like the fact that we are able to, as a group, come to a consensus that we can all agree with and we can all feel good about.
Thank you.
I also want to echo that and also say that we have done a lot of work this year on our process, as Sarah and Mary had mentioned, because things were maybe a little bit clunky in the first year and we were all learning how to be the most efficient we could. I really appreciated their willingness to kind of go through that journey. We have working agreements as a group. We do have agendas. We do try to have regularly scheduled meetings, but they're also very flexible if we need to change them. We also just, trying to make sure that we had some things a little bit more streamlined in our process to make the meetings more efficient. So we're not focusing on process and we're focusing on the actual business. So I appreciated that very much.
Any questions for staff? Thank you so much for your sharing your thoughts on this topic as well with us. And for your, of course, continued collaboration with the group. And I know a city attorney also works closely with you all on this as well. Council President, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Just exactly what you said, Chief. It's just so gratifying and affirming of this process that you're talking about seeing from another perspective and learning clearly with that. That's exactly what we were hoping for. So I know that this was the genesis of this group was created in kind of a forged in a fire of sorts, and a lot of us felt the heat, some more than others, I'm sure. So I think that to come through that and out on the other side with this process is, I couldn't actually ask for anything better. So thank you for doing that work. I know you've been involved in all along on this journey. So I'm very grateful to have you here as chief and doing that work. And Alyssa, thank you for your leadership too.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Councilor Bonington, go ahead.
Yeah, going to kind of an even higher level further back that includes some of you and the work you did on this. I wasn't here for it, and I was just watching from the outside. Everything you all did together on this has gone really, really well, and everyone should be patting themselves on the back for it because it's definitely a success story that I hope other cities might be able to learn from and find some value in. So good job, everyone.
I'll give myself a little pat. No, thank you, Councilor, for that. Anything else from Councilor Groner?
Express the hope that we don't stress test the system.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor. Agreed. Very much so. Well, thank you, everybody, for the collaborative and wonderful discussion, members as well. And maybe I don't know, I can pass along a message from the City Council. I'd want to thank all the members as well for their service and echo the same comments that I made here today to the members who weren't able to join us. So maybe I'll write up a little message or something to get that over to them. Council President?
Well, it just occurs to me that there might be other cities who would be interested in learning about this process. And I wonder if we could communicate with the League of Oregon Cities or do some other kind of outreach to offer up our experience. Because I do think we may be the only smaller city that's smaller than Portland, say, who is doing this kind of work. Just an idea.
Great idea. I totally agree. Okay, well, with that, we can then, shall we transition to the next topic? We have the joint meeting with the Utility Advisory Board, and got several members of the Utility Advisory Board to come up, and we've got.
Okay, Mayor and Council, on to the next topic and some more dedicated community volunteers. Eric is here with UAB members and consultant team to talk about a city council priority that is funding the drinking water capital system. Following the approval of the water system master plan in 2024, as directed, we've been working on a rate review and an SDC review. And Eric, I think, will be starting us off and queuing up presentations on both of those topics, this important theme. So Eric, the floor is yours.
All right. Thank you, John. Eric Leyes, City Engineer, Public Works Director. Quick introduction with our UAB team. We're down to only 3, but we're strong. We're here.
Jeff Stallard, Committee Chair.
Kristen Keeper, member.
We have the 3rd member online, Lynn Chicoine, as well, attending remotely.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you both for being here, and you online as well, Lynn. And we're recruiting. I'll just make the plug right now. We need members for the Utility Advisory Board to get up to a quorum. So if anybody out there is interested in getting involved, there's opportunities with the Utility Advisory Board, and they're doing important work, which you're about to hear about.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
take it back away, Eric.
So tonight in your packet, you'll see that two presentations really by the same consultant. So we thought we'd tackle one at a time. First with the water SDCs, which will probably look familiar since we were just here not long ago with the sewer SDC update. But it's always good to have a refresher. So I'm going to do a quick intro and then staff recommendations, and then we'll turn it over to Amanda and Angie, and they'll dive into the presentation. So as you may remember, SDCs are a one-time charge paid at the time of new development or redevelopment and account for expanded demand on the city's infrastructure. The city has contracted with FCS, Bowman Company, through a professional services contract to review and update its fee schedule to account for current infrastructure demand and to capture updated capital needs for future expansion. Due to Westland being largely built out, the city's water SDC fee is determined to be significantly decreased. Also, due to the strict nature of when SDCs can be implemented, the city doesn't foresee a significant impact to capital projects. So moving forward, our staff's recommendation would be proceeding to an adoption hearing with a proposed SDC rate reductions. This would ensure Westland remains in compliance with state and local laws for SDC assessment. So with that, I'll turn it over to Amanda. Is she?
Hi, yes. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Great. Is there, let me see. I think I can just share without being made a presenter.
If you can share it,
Okay.
you can let me know if you can't.
Yeah.
I can always share the presentation, Amanda, if you can't. Oh.
It should.
There, we see it.
There.
Okay, perfect. All right. Well, thank you, Eric, for that introduction. I'm going to get into the slides right now about the 2025. The study was completed at the end of last year, system development charges, and a lot of the items that were just spoken about is what we'll start off with. First, we'll take a look at the current SDCs for the city. Now, this is taken straight from the current rate schedule where there's an CCI applied to the previous year's charge. So we've got a reimbursement charge, an improvement charge, and an admin charge totaling $13,205 for the effective date of July 1st, 2025. So this is the number that we'll be comparing our new calculated SDCs against, but really we're just looking at that reimbursement and improvement fee portion for the calculation here. So we'll move on to some of those main items, the key characteristics of SDCs. Like Eric said, they're one-time charges. They're not ongoing rates, and they're paid at the time of the development. The SDCs are available for water and wastewater, stormwater, transportation, and parks. Tonight, of course, we're just talking about those water SDCs, and their only use for capital in both their calculation and in the way that those funds are spent. SDCs in the state of Oregon include both existing and future planned capital for infrastructure cost components, and these are for the system facilities, not local facilities. So just a couple of main topics for the characteristics of the SDCs we'll be discussing. And here we've outlined in the Oregon statute that the uniform framework for the SDCs are allowed by this particular line item here, and that the charges may be used only for capital improvements. So we are drawing directly from state code to get this information. Right, and we'll jump right into the SDC calculation. So I kind of hinted at before, it's a combination of a few different components. We've got our reimbursement fee, our improvement fee, and both of those items are divided by our growth in system demand, and that gives us our system development charge, which is assessed per unit of demand. So first, taking a look at the reimbursement fee, this takes a look at what is in the ground today, or those existing assets. And for this part of the calculation, we need to assess the available capacity within the existing system, as stated in the system plan in Westland's case. For storage and pumping assets, what we do is we look at what is available and then how that correlates with the dollars associated with those existing assets in the ground today. So for the reimbursement fee, we're just under $700,000 worth of costs that can be kind of attributed to that particular part of the fee. Now the improvement fee, this orange box, this is what we call the capital portion of the SDC. So just like in the reimbursement piece, the improvement fee can only really be used capacity expanding projects as well. So we're not looking at the full master plan, we're only looking at those specific projects or portions of specific projects that are expanding the capacity of the system. So in this case, the system master plan, approximately 12% of the CIP in original cost is considered capacity expanding. And so those are the only project costs that we can include in the improvement fee portion of the SDC. We also have to remember that we need to reduce or deduct the current SDC fund balances from that total charge, as those technically could be used to pay for some capital. And finally, we have our denominator for both of those reimbursement and improvement fees. This is essentially looking at the growth in the system from the beginning of the study, so 2024, through the end of the planning period, which according to the master plan was 2043. So in both customer data and in the planning data, we need to use the capacity left between what's happening today and what's projected to happen in 2043 to get that denominator. And we're using that same value for both of the fees. So when we add those together, we get a total of $2,644 per unit of demand. This includes a compliance fee of about $11 per MCE. So in general, when we think about that total and we look at what is charged now just for reimbursement and improvement, we've got a deduction over in the far right column next to our proposed charge in the middle there. So there is quite a reduction for that first meter size, and then using AWWA meter sizes scaling up, you can see how that ratio kind of shifts from 5/8 to 1 inch or 1 inch to 3 inch kind of scales up, but of course not as fast as the current charges are today. So looking at this SDC comparison from current charges to proposed, it's also important to point out that the fees calculated with this methodology, these are the maximum allowable fees that the city can charge. And when we look at how that compares to what you're charging now, there is a reduction that brings you not to the end or the bottom of the list, but takes you from the top down to the bottom middle. So this is what the updated SDC charge looks like here. And this is the updated charge that is also incorporated into our revenue requirement analysis that we'll talk about soon. So I wanted to just open up, I think, for any questions or pass it back to Eric to see if there's any other things to add there.
Thank you for the presentation. Any questions from City Council? Seems like the same story as with our stormwater SDCs that we talked about a couple of months ago and approved. Any questions from Utility Advisory Board members? Okay. I guess is the request kind of consensus on bringing this back for adoption? And then
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
So we get on another council agenda to come back for adoption with the new water SDC.
Councilor Bright, go ahead.
And then the new rate would be effective July 1, 2026. Would that be the plan if it's approved by the council?
I believe so. I'd have to check with Lauren on that, but I know that's when the new fees go into place. I just don't know how much time she needs to.
Yeah, okay.
I think
you.
we have time.
Yeah.
Councilor Groner, go ahead.
Yes, this is a very substantial reduction from current to proposed. What's the major thing driving this reduction?
I could flip that over to Amanda, but my answer to that would be our lack of growth. As she stated, we just don't have that growth component for the additional SDC portion of that formula. Amanda can answer it better than.
Yes, and sorry, was the question, why is it reducing so much? I couldn't quite hear.
Yeah, what's driving the decline in revenues? That's such a drastic drop.
Got it. So there's a couple things. One of them was just brought up where there's not a lot of growth left happening within the city. So that limits the capacity element of those two parts of the charge. And that's directly reflected in the nature of the CIP and the master plan. So a small percentage of that plan is actually related to capacity expanding projects or activities. So we can't use all of the dollars that need to be spent on the city. We can only use that capacity expanding piece. So that's another part too. I think the bottom line is just the city is close to build out. And when that happens, the charge has to be reduced to kind of reflect that remaining capacity.
Could you make sure you're there?
Then apparently the current rates were based on a much larger growth rate than the proposed ones?
So I can't speak to how the original SDCs were put in place, but I do know that they've been increasing by CCI every couple of years, or I think every year. And if the methodology was different when those were first put into place, or if there was a lot more capacity expanding projects at that time, then yes, it would have been calculated higher than that. But it sounds like, or it could be possible that it just hasn't been revisited since those metrics have changed.
So another way of thinking about this is that system development charges pay for large capacity projects, increasing the capacity of our system. When Westland was growing, there was a need for larger pipes, more pipes in new locations, all of that to serve that development. Now that our system's mostly built out, as you'll hear in a few minutes, the emphasis is shifting to maintaining and replacing those systems. The SDC can only really expand systems or install new systems. And we just don't have much of a need for that. We pretty much have large pipe going everywhere it needs to go. Would you say that's right, Eric? And really our focus shifts to maintaining that pipe and replacing it over time than building new, larger ones.
Thank you.
I
Good,
guess
good question.
I have
Go
one
ahead.
question around, so we have some, I know in land use, some larger, very dense plans down at Tandler and such. And so I guess this is kind of maybe back to a master planning discussion, but how do these large, high dense plans or developments factor into growth, right? I mean, we don't have a lot of land to grow, but densification would be. And so is there an underlying assumption of dense development that we're seeing potential land use applications for, accounted for in the master plan?
I mean, those are included in the master plan as far as what and where and how we would serve them. As far as the growth component that I think you're asking about, as far as demand, I believe that's in that. Amanda, can you go back to that formula that you talked about?
Oh, sure. All right, let me pull it up.
It's a great question. Yeah, thank you for asking that. Council President had a similar question about Vision 43 too.
I mean, the other thing, while she's pulling that up, would be in our master plan as far as modeling, whatever the land use is, we have what that demand would be on the system. So that's included in that in that project list.
Do you want to jump in on it all? Then I'll go to Carol. She had a similar
I
question.
mean, yes, that's exactly what I was wondering. I mean, here we are talking about Highway 43 vision plan, the waterfront. I mean, we're talking about some pretty potentially large project development happening within the city limits. So, I mean, I keep on hearing we're built out, but actually we're planning in the fairly near future to maybe do quite a bit more with these two projects. And how would this affect that?
I don't know that we have, I mean, like for Tandler, it's housing, right? And some commercial use. So there's not a huge demand on what we have with the existing system. So as far as, I think we're back to that capacity improving component, that the system we have in place for that development is sufficient enough. I can't necessarily speak on the Highway 43 improvements on what is proposed along that corridor. We have, it's redevelopment, right? So and maybe John could help me out with this. I apologize, I haven't been to all the meetings, but
I think the water system master plan that was approved almost 2 years ago now looked at the comprehensive plan and the land use plan and the allowed uses in each zone and made a determination about the size of water pipe needed in each area. And I think even with some assumptions about redevelopment in these areas, the system is either large enough fundamentally, the distribution system is large enough fundamentally, or there might be a couple of small improvements that are needed. I think if I'm way over my skis right now, but I think if we were to be thinking really sort of massive increases in density and usage or large industrial, that would be industrial is the thing that really draws water more than sort of a 4-story versus a 6-story building. I think you might have to look at increasing the infrastructure again, but based on what we know now, the water system master plan is adequate to serve our anticipated needs.
I'm going to let Council Breck jump in, and I think maybe before we adopt these things, we could have a little more research done into this question, because this is a very important topic. We don't want to preemptively reduce the rates too much if we have future demand. So we'd love to get some answers on that. Councilor Bright, please.
Well, I think part of it has to do with the sizing of the existing system. So recent water line replacements have been put in at some minimum size, which is typically way larger than it had been before. And any of those projects that are completed are removed from this calculation. So I know when I lived on Nixon Avenue, they replaced the water line there, and we had a 1.5-inch water line serving like 20 or 30 homes. And they replaced that. And I don't know what the minimum is now. Is it 8-inch or for a water
Yeah,
main?
8.
And so it was replaced with an 8-inch main. So because that work's already done, it's not included in this costing. But that work was included in the previous number, which, as we have seen, was much higher because they had to replace that 1.5-inch line with an 8-inch line. So I think that's one of the reasons that we're seeing this. I also think that if we see something different in development that is going to have a major impact on this, we would revisit the system development charges at that time.
The key point to that being that we can't charge for infrastructure that we're not planning on building. Our SDCs are regulated by state law, so if we would have to change the system plan in order to charge a higher rate based on what you've heard tonight. But I appreciate the question. We took it down. We will talk to planning. And if you choose to move forward with this, we can bring back more information about what the assumptions are and what the services are in some key places. We can probably bring some examples. Eric, for example, what does the distribution system look like on Highway 43 and what's it capable of?
Councilor Bonington, go ahead.
I think the only concern, I understand what we're doing, but I think for the record, if we move forward, it would be really important to be able to clarify that reducing these is not in conflict with the other financial conversation we're having, just to be able to make that really crystal clear.
Thank you for that. Anything else on SDCs, or maybe we can move on to the water rates component of the conversation?
All right, thank you, Mayor. Good discussion on the SDCs. I appreciate the questions. We'll come back and revisit those issues. So water rate, the water system utility fee is assessed to all users for maintenance and operations of the city's water distribution system. Changes to the water utility rates are addressed in Chapter 10, Section 44 of the City Charter. States that no rate increase shall exceed 5% in any calendar year without first receiving voter approval. Traditionally, the Utility Advisory Board has recommended and City Council approved a 5% yearly increase. However, this level of funding has resulted in an increased capital and maintenance backlog of projects. As we go through the presentation, FCS as rate recommendations are simply illustrative examples of the increase needed to address capital project backlog. As I just mentioned, they are not proposals or immediate action. Proceeding with any increase over 5% would obviously require a vote of the residents. The result of the rate study will help inform council prioritization and discussions with the Westland community. So with that, I'll flip it back over to Amanda and she can go into the next presentation.
Okay. Can you all see the new PowerPoint, the revenue requirement one?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, perfect. Thanks. All right, so we'll start with what do the rates need to cover, or what is a revenue requirement for the water utility? So there's a lot of different aspects we need to consider when we're building rates for a utility, whether that's a near-term or long-term forecast. There are some kind of essential must-do things that we need to check off our list. One of them being we need to determine the total amount of revenue needed to cover your existing operating and maintenance expenses. Some larger charges from the current budget include wholesale water charges and reimbursement charges. There's also debt service that needs to be covered. And then, of course, we're layering on additional capital costs in addition to that O&M. There are also certain reserve balance targets that we want to meet with these rates. So not only do we want to cover those existing costs and additional capital and existing debt, but we want to make sure we're keeping those reserves at a healthy target throughout the full forecast, or at least working towards it over time. And then we need to make sure that the revenue is sufficient over multi-year periods. So we're not just looking at, can the rates cover the planned capital for the next 2 years, or can the rates cover existing needs just within the next budgeting cycle? But we're taking kind of a further back look and going out 6, 7, 10 years and seeing if we can smooth out rates over time to try to cover some of these costs that are coming up later in the forecast. And then we're going to develop a rate plan to balance all of these financial needs while trying to minimize customer impacts best we can. So some key assumptions that we made during this study, each one of these boxes goes over kind of a different element of one of the items I talked about on the previous slide, where for our forecast basis, we're thinking about the years fiscal year 2026 through fiscal year 2025, and we're using the fiscal year 27 budget as our baseline. So everything we're forecasting beyond fiscal year 2027 is really using that year as a starting point. Our operating reserve targets, these are about 10% of operating expenses that we want to keep in the fund to make sure that if there's any unexpected lulls in revenue or if an expense comes up, that we're able to kind of pay for that without going in the negative or needing some emergency borrowing or anything like that. Customer growth over time, we have this set at 0.15%, which is about 17 new MCEs per year. And the annual rate revenue before rate increases. So if we were just to say, how does your revenue change year by year without even thinking about any potential increases? The utility is currently bringing in about 6.5 to 6.8 million over the forecast period. Expense inflation. So when we look at our 2027 budget, we're going to take that baseline and escalate specific items by our assumption escalation forecast. So if it's something like a labor cost or a benefit cost, we have a specific cost escalation factor for that. General cost is a little bit different, but overall, the budget is increasing by about 2.8% each year to try to keep up with that inflation. The capital plan, we're looking at the years fiscal year 2026 through 2035. The total is about 73.5 million for those particular years, but then there's also some out years that we're trying to make sure we can finance as well. So we don't want to set rates where you get to 2035 and then all of a sudden you don't have enough to cover the remaining 19.7 million. We're trying to smooth out the forecast so all of the capital can be covered within that time period. Existing debt service, there's an average of about $1.6 million in existing debt payments per year, which we have modeled within each scenario. And of course, system development charges, we are assuming a fiscal year 2027 rate of that $2,644 per MCE here. Right, so next slide takes a look at the capital plan and escalated dollars. This plan represents the entire system master plan. So this is not just the next couple years of city planning. This is really everything that needs to get done. So this is all of the storage and seismic work, the pump stations, operations, distribution items, building and improvements, the water line project, which I know is more in the near term, but this is really looking at everything that needs to be done according to the master plan by fiscal year 2035. As you can see, the first couple years of the plan have a lot of dollars stacked within them, one of them being building improvements and vehicles. Also, the water line project is another big one that is within those first couple years. By 2030, it evens out a little bit, about 1.6 average in capital per year, with another spike in 2034, some more storage and CMP projects. So the revenue requirement results, just to kind of get everyone familiar with this kind of table, it really shows two things. One of them is the expenses over time for the utility, and the other is the rates that are needed to cover those expenses. So the green bar at the bottom, this is your operating expenses. So everything that's in your budget as a ongoing kind of labor cost, benefits, small works, maintenance, that kind of thing. That's the green bar. The pink bar represents your existing debt service. So that's the debt service that you're already committed to paying over time. The new debt service is in that darker pink right above that. So that's what we're projecting you would need to take out to cover those projects, in addition to what you already have in debt. And then the rate funded capital is any excess or the additional rate funded cash that is used to pay for capital. Now, this bar doesn't necessarily represent the capital you need to pay for. It's really just showing of your expenses, what of that are you using to pay for capital costs rather than operating expenses or existing debt service, that kind of thing. So if you have your 5% in 2026, the next year in 2027, you need a 25% rate increase, followed by another 25% rate increase in 28, which can then be followed by the 4.99s, or just under 5% for the remaining piece of the forecast. And this will be able to fund all of your capital plan from the master plan, as well as your existing obligations. Now, it's important to note that this scenario includes grant funding. So this includes a $6.25 million grant in the next fiscal year. And if the utility does not receive that particular grant, the rates would need to be 10% higher for those 2 years. So
just to clarify, those
yes.
are the two grants, the federal and the state grant for the water lines is that adds up to
That's it,
6.25.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Can we stop for questions right now? Any questions on this particular slide? I have one question to start out. Could you just say one more time the difference between the dark pink, so the new debt service, and the rate funded capital lines? Like, what's the difference between those? Like, what are those projecting to fund?
So in this chart right here, the difference between the two is that the new debt service represents the new payments that the city will have to make with the revenue that they're going to, revenue bonds or other loans that they're going to have to take out to cover debt. So for example, in the scenario we're looking at right now for 235% without that grant funding, there would need to be a $6 million revenue bond in 2027, a $5 million revenue bond in 2029, and that's it. So those pink bars, the dark ones, represent those additional payments that are needed to pay back those bonds, whereas the yellow just represents the cash from rate increases that will be used to pay for capital projects. What projects they're paying for specifically would just be based on the schedule of the CIP and the master plan. So whatever dollars are assigned to that particular year, those are the ones we're trying to fund. We're not really saying, we need to use this specific debt to pay for this specific project with this kind of schedule.
Thank you for the clarification. That's helpful.
I believe a big portion of each of those darker pink is the water utilities obligation for the new ops building.
Okay. Thanks. Council President Baumgartner, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wondered when we'll know about the grant funding.
Great question. It's been a topic of ongoing discussions and frustrations, and I know there's a lot of work behind the scenes on that. So go ahead, please.
What I can tell you is that we are feeling increasingly optimistic, particularly about the state one. There has been some significant movement lately, looking to Morgan to make sure nothing fell apart today on the state grant in particular, which is the big chunk.
$5 million.
$5 million allocated by the state of Oregon for the water line underneath the Abernethy Bridge, which provides all our water, which ODOT is requiring us to replace. And there were some significant challenges in getting the relevant state agencies to talk in the same language to allow us to utilize those funds. But a lot of folks have put in a lot of effort, and that is looking more positive. I actually don't have an update tonight about the federal side. You can give me an up, a sideways, or a down. Sideways. Okay, we're going to say we are still working on that one. That one has also been challenging. Lots of turmoil at the federal level, and accessing federal funds and getting clear communication has been challenging. But 5 million is looking better and better.
She gave a thumbs to the side, which is better than the John McCain thumbs down.
Definitely, definitely better.
Thank you.
Thank you. And especially thanks to Morgan for working on that for us.
I think there's been a whole staff team of Morgan and Stephanie and John and others that have been, Kaylee, working on that. So thank you. And I'm looking forward to when we finally have word that those funds are unlocked. As you can see on the chart, I mean, it's a big difference in needs for the city if we get 6.25 million versus having to zero. So anyway, any other questions on the slide? This is kind of one of the more important, these two slides. I mean, this with and without grant funding. Happy to take questions. Or we can continue the present. Any question from Utility Advisory Board before we? Okay, continue the presentation. And thank you for letting me stop and interrupt.
Yeah, no problem. So the next slide here shows the rate schedule for the customer-facing bills with that grant funding assumption. So if we look back at this slide, we're looking at the 25% followed by the 5s. So this is what the rates would look like for customers if we followed that schedule through 2035. We've got about $33 in today's rate. It's going to go up to just under 42 in the next year, and then up to 52 in fiscal year 2028, followed by some smaller dollar increases past that time. I don't believe it goes up by more than $10 in those first, or by either of those first 2 years. So dollar amount versus percentage is something that maybe is an important item to communicate to customers as well, where it's not their entire bill going up by the 20% or 25%, it's just that water piece. And when we look at that comparison with neighboring jurisdictions, right now, Westland's rate is one of the lowest. And with that rate increase of 25% in the next fiscal year, they bump up a few spots, but are still in that mid-lower range for neighboring jurisdictions.
Interesting.
And then I'm happy to go back to any of the other slides or answer any more questions for y'all, but thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for the, I would call it sobering presentation for us on City Council. I'm sure Utility Advisory Board members as well, especially with the 5% cap that we have and all that goes into water funding. And perhaps the 5% cap is part of the reason why we're so low on the list here, which is good for the community, but also bad for the water system. Councilor Bragg, please.
I just wanted to say, when I used to do this for my work, I always included the city of Lake Oswego as well. So today I looked up what it would cost in Lake Oswego, and their rate would have been, would be 5303. So we're still kind of, they're more in the higher end of the mid-range. So just in case anybody wants to compare that.
I'm curious, my Utility Advisory Board members, this is your wheelhouse per se on utility rates, so I'm happy to, any thoughts or comments from you all, and thanks for being here tonight as well.
And I don't have any, the 5% increase in the charter and having to go to the vote of the people, I think does put, there's a reason Westland's rates are the lowest in the metro area. I think it's a disservice to the kind of the quality of service we're getting for our water. I like to have water 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, right? And not only that, but I also like to have fire protection water. And so if we can't, I think the thing that we've talked about as advisory committee is really about communication out to the public about what, if we're going to have to go to a vote, which is what the charter requires, making sure that it's a very well-developed communication plan. When people see 25%, that's a very large increase. When it amounts to a couple dollars and a month for folks, that is a big impact to people, right? They're not planning for, but also what we get for that. And I think the messaging and communication is critical, and I wouldn't rush it through a
Absolutely.
vote. I think we saw on the I-205 stuff that, rushing through and not giving good communication to the public and having them understand it is a big deal. And people aren't just going to say yes to bigger rate increases. But I also think it's critical that we get a bigger rate increase, and whether that's revising the charter to increase the 5% cap or some other more means of communicating that, I think, that should be considered in this. That's kind of my thoughts on it.
Thank you for that. Wise words.
This is Lynn Chacoin, attending virtually. I had a
Go ahead.
question. I had a question for Amanda. Did you, and maybe this is too granular for where you are now, but did you look at demand charges and increasing those, and if you did, that would be part of a message, I think?
Yes, so the volume charges, which I think are currently $3.83 for any CCF over 7 CCFs, that would increase with the base charge. So those are increasing as well by the 25%. When we show a customer bill, though, the typical average bill might be under that, so they would only see the fixed charge changing over time. But yes, those volume charges are going up with the fixed charge. Now, if we decided to change up the ratio of the volume versus the fixed, that's a little bit different than just this revenue requirement. So these are technically across the board. So we're just saying the rates are applied evenly to every part of the charge. But rate design is more where we would say, well, if we were to raise the volume charge a little bit more than the base, like how much more could we make up? So no, we have not looked at that yet. The revenue requirement was just figuring out how much money we needed to get in the door.
That might be something to look at, and might be something you want to think about with the messaging.
Thank you for that. Good question and thoughts. Go ahead, Mr. Kuiper.
Good evening, everybody. I have a few questions related to this, and some, I guess, are just comments. But first, looking at the figure that's up on the screen right now, that looks to be the rate increase for fiscal year 2027 that's represented in the tan bar. The fiscal year 28 increase is another 25%. So if we also put that on the figure, that puts us between Gresham and Hillsborough. And, well, actually between Hillsborough and Lake Oswego, I think, based on Carol's description of Lake Oswego's rates. So I think that we should be thinking about the entire rate increase that's proposed here. And this is really just showing half of it. I also think, kind of in relation to the question about demand charges, if we're looking at putting something to the voters anyway, I think this would be a good opportunity to revisit the fixed first 7 CCF and the rates. It's my view that building that first 7 units of consumption into the utility rates.
I'm sorry, could you go closer to your mic? I'm having difficulty hearing you.
It's my expectation that building that 7 CCF into the utility rates simply encourages consumption that might not necessarily be consumed otherwise if that was done under a volumetric charge. And I do think that there are some potential impacts to the overall rate design that might occur from having people who consume more water pay for the more water that they consume.
Yeah.
And related to that, on the final note too, here I look at these increasing charges by meter size, and I was just doing some back of the envelope math. It seems like if you try to normalize for the diameter represented there, those higher meters are getting that first CCF, 7 CCF for less than the lower users are doing. So I think that does raise some equity concerns there. Those are my comments. Thanks.
Thank you for those sharp comments and interesting thoughts about, we don't have to think about the 7 CCF that are built in automatically. I don't know, I never use 7 CCF at my house, but I'm sure there's some who do. So then, cool. And thanks for the thoughts also about the chart and the, so Councilor Bright, go ahead.
So with relationship to the following years, all of these other cities will also be doing some kind of rate increase over time. So, and most of them do not have any charter limitation on what that rate can be. So they do a rate study and they figure out how much they need to cover their costs. So it's hard to go out years because, and some of them raise their rates in January, some of them raise their rates in July. And it's just, it makes it difficult to compare. This is the only time that we can actually compare apples to apples. But I personally would be in favor of looking into some conservation pricing where people pay for the water that they use, and if they use a higher volume of water, they pay that at a higher rate.
Thank you. I'm imagining from a staff perspective, that would be a sea change in how we do things with the utility, the water billing. So I'm not anticipating any quick answers on that, but perhaps it's something we can take a look at over, and as part of our financial discussions.
Mayor, real quick.
Please.
In closing, all good discussion, and just wanted to remind everyone of you that we were just bringing this as an initial discussion. The 25% is a great illustration, but maybe that's not the number. You know, there's a big spreadsheet that you can punch other increases in to see where you land. So this is just an introduction on, again, as Amanda alluded to, it covers every project in the master plan. Maybe those aren't necessary to fund over the next 10 to 15 years.
I appreciate that clarification, especially
yeah.
for the public watching. You know,
Yeah.
this is assuming we're funding every single capital project and what it would take. But it's important to look at that as a starting point and baseline for the conversation.
Yeah. And so we're happy to bring back other examples again for further discussion. Also to note, there's other water rate discussion going on where we're going to looking at South Fork being a pass-through charge. Is that the right terminology? Similar to Clackamas County Water Environmental Services, you see that as a separate line item on your bill. Right now, that's South Fork's bill is included in the utility rates, so you don't see that. So they're looking at the need for big infrastructure improvements. You all know, being on the board. And so if they have to raise their rates, you know, what does that do with ours? Because we can't increase ours more than 5% as we've been discussing. So we got an update from city attorney today. That's moving along. We got good news from the legal team that it looks like there is a path forward to pull that out. Just have to figure out the next steps.
Thanks for that update.
Yeah.
And that is interesting, right? If South Fork raises its rates, then the city of West Linn can't necessarily, we're studying whether we can pass that through, but like Oregon City, they already bifurcated out the other co-owner of South Fork. And so then we can't absorb that as easily at West Linn under the current system.
Yeah.
So any other comments on the topic? Councilor Bright, please.
I would like to say that having the 5% cap in our charter seems challenging to me because that 5% is not based on any system requirements. And, you know, as Jeff said, we all want to turn on the faucet and have that water there every time we turn it on. And it's a pretty critical need for our community. And I feel like having a utility advisory board, we can look at the needs of the system very carefully, and then the council can receive a recommendation from the utility advisory board of what needs to happen to make sure that we can keep our system whole.
Thank you. Thank you, Counselor. I agree with that, and I'm looking forward to continued discussions about this. I think this is one of the most important topics that we take up. And so this was a work session tonight, just setting a baseline, giving us some numbers, and then I'm sure we'll have, you have another comment? Oh, I'm not, I'm just giving a little conclusion from my perspective, then I was going to open the floor up for others for comments. So any
I just
final-
I have one more comment. When we talk about so we develop capital plans, we develop master plans, right? Those are founded in what we expect to happen in our communities. So if we aren't building so I come from a utility background. If we're not building what we need to have, then we won't have it when we need it. And so I want to make sure we convey, again, it's about communication. If we're going to raise rates, I think we should. But if we're going to, we need to communicate. If it doesn't happen, what are the things we're not doing, right? We're not maintaining, we're not able to continue to maintain our systems. And so, as Eric said, this assumes all capital gets developed, but I think we have these plans for a reason, right? And if we're not delivering on our capital plans, then we're not doing our jobs as utility people, in my opinion. So, thanks.
Thank you for that comment. Counselor Bright, go ahead.
One more thing, I do have to say, as the liaison to the Utility Advisory Board, the Utility Advisory Board has robust discussions about this. There's a lot of knowledge and interest in what's going on with the utilities of the city, and I appreciate all of the work that they put into that and all of the effort. The conversations have been really great.
Absolutely. I would extend the same thanks that we gave to the Police Review and Recommend Committee to you all as community volunteers. And I actually hope this is the first of more frequent conversations, because I really enjoyed your comments tonight and value your perspectives from the three of you that are here. And then we'll get some more members as well to join us on the topic. Because like I said, one of the most important things we do, and having the community perspective is very valuable to me and all of us, I think. So, Council President, you had another comment.
I just wanted to confirm everything they just said, and I just am so grateful that we have such engaged and knowledgeable people willing to step up and volunteer. Thank you. Thank you so much, all three of you.
Any other comments from Councilor Bonington? Councilor Groner, to close this out?
Again, I want to thank the committee for the good work you've done.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for working on this. I know it's really challenging and probably a little bit like banging your head against a wall, but it's important work. So thank you.
Agreed. The 5% cap is an interesting number from it's put in by initiative petition, I think, back in the 90s. And it's been there ever since. Yeah, I think so. Right, 90s. Yep. So
One quick question. We're going to have a report from the Parks Department. Do you bill the Parks Department for the water they use? Okay. Okay.
the Parks Director confirmed from the back that they do pay for their own water. Councilor Bright. Please.
Okay, one more thing. Also looking at the revenue requirements chart, after we get this initial larger increases to get us kind of caught up, if you'll notice, all the rest of the years, the outlying years, are right at that 5%. So it's, we've just gotten behind because we had years where there was more work that needed to be done, or inflation was greater. We had a year where the inflation was like 8% and the construction inflation was even worse than that. So we've just gotten behind.
Yes, go ahead. Thank you, Councilor Bright, as well.
Yeah, in my experience in utility rate design, and again, I work on the electric side, but this 5% or any real kind of cap it's very unusual. And I would encourage us to look towards something like a formula rate or something along those lines instead. Thank you.
I think it's very interesting. We should get a briefing on the history of that, just as part of these conversations, because I've read a little bit about it from South Fork conversations, and I think city had to increase rates a huge amount at once, and then the community.
It's my understanding that before that measure in 1999, that the community had to vote on any water rate increase.
Oh, interesting. Wow.
And so this was seen as huge progress, that anything under 5% did not require an election. And so I understand that as progress because there were elections where small rates were defeated, is my understanding, and large rates defeated. So this is a much better scenario than that. But even with this chart, I suspect over time, you'll hit another tipping point. And so it'll probably just keep happening because unless magically the price of steel and labor and excavation and flagging on streets and all of that goes down, but which it doesn't seem to do. So it is interesting to hamstring yourself on your most critical system.
This is Lynn Chacoin, real quick.
Go ahead.
And I've been in West Lynn since 1990, so I was here for that. And I can fill you in, but I'll just emphasize that communication with the public is key.
Thank you. Great thought. And thanks for being with us online. And I'm sure we can get some, maybe some, if Kathy has any free time sometime, maybe she could pull a little bit of the history of that issue as well.
Sure, happy to report on that.
Just for we all have the same level of baseline knowledge about that as we kind of have these rate conversations, because I'm not even certain of the history of it. So with that, anything else on the topic of water rates? We'll just continue these conversations, and I know we're kind of having a lot of financial conversations as a city. So is the plan just to kind of loop this into our broader conversations?
Yes, that was our thought. We proposed this evening to move ahead with the SDC part of it, and you gave us some requests for information that would be. So we'll talk about that at the staff level, and I think keep moving forward with that or bring back more information. But I think this kind of conversation needs to be folded into really our next topic.
Sounds good.
Great.
Well, anybody want a quick break? Or are we ready to continue forward? Well, and we can let our esteemed advisory board members have the rest of their evening. So thank you for coming in. We look forward to continued conversations. And we'll help you have more conversations by getting you a quorum of members, okay?
Thank you.
Is TJ Landis still on the utility advisory board?
No.
Oh, he's off. He's off. Dang.
Okay, well, no break. We will move forward on to the next item then, and this is a continued discussion. This one is a council favorite.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yep. So continued discussion of the city's general fund and the park's utility service fee. And so
Please.
I sort of shoehorned two topics into the same agenda packet because they've been connected in your discussions. So thinking about how we're addressing specifically the park's share of the Operations Center project. Council's had multiple discussions about a potential rate increase on the park's utility service fee, but this has become connected to the broader discussion of the city's financial needs and opportunities. And the packet includes specific information about the park's utility service fee and some specific questions about that. Launching off of your most recent meetings. And it also contains a discussion of a possible roadmap for the city's overall financial strategy discussion. So what I thought I would do is just remind ourselves where we were on the park's utility service fee, present a brief overview of the financial strategy proposal, and then stop talking. In your January meetings, you discussed options for a $5.20 per month increase to the Parks utility service fee. And again, that was to address the park share of the operations center. And the question, sort of the couple of extra questions ended up arising. One is, if we were to do that, when would it take effect? There was some discussion of backdating it back to January, or having it start at after a decision is made, or having it start July 1st. All of those are possible. As we've been thinking about at the staff level, our thought is, if this is approved, we think it should probably be take effect in the future, not go backwards in time. So it could start, like if you were to approve it in February, it could start in March, or it could be added into the July increase. I think that gives us time to explain it, to talk about it, to communicate it. So that would make sense to me. And then the council also discussed whether there should be an additional increase. There was a couple of thoughts there. One was start working at the overall forecasted city general fund shortfall. And also there was some discussion of maybe some smaller thing that was linked to specific projects to show what the parks utility service fee could do. So that is sort of where we were at our last episode, and where we propose you keep working on tonight. I can stop there maybe, or I can keep going and talk about what is all that stuff in the rest of the packet. Mayor, what would you prefer?
Why don't you just get it all out there, and then
Okay, I'll get it all.
start the
I'll get it
conversation.
all out there, and then Megan and I are happy to answer any questions you have and support your discussion. Unfortunately, Lauren was not able to join us tonight, so if it gets too far down into the financial hows, then we'll have to take notes and get back to you. So going all the way back to last year, in your retreats and at the meetings in November and December and January, there was a robust council discussion about how to consider that parks utility service fee in the broader context of all of the financial needs. And I think there was, it seemed like there was broad agreement to me on the council that although you might do a small piece of it right now related to the operations center, what you really want to do is start up a conversation about the city's real needs, and be thinking about which ones are priorities, how you might address them, how you might talk to the community about them, and moving forward in that way. And so since your last meeting, some conversations that I had, Councilor Bonington and I and Lauren had a great working conversation where we were writing on paper, where we were writing sort of timelines and diagrams and ideas. And some of that led to what you have here. I've also talked to the mayor, and I've talked to each of you individually. What I have is a sort of a draft roadmap really coming out of those conversations that proposes a conversation with the community about this. But it starts not with a specific, hey, would you like $10 or $15, or would you like a tax or a fee, or would you know, it really is starting in an open-ended discussion with the community, where we ask about what are their expectations about services, what are their needs, what are their hopes, what do they wish to see, and it allows us to conduct this in kind of an iterative way for each of these phases. And I proposed moving pretty fast because it seems like the council wants to get to some decision making, and you want to start working on these pieces that you think are important. But we propose basically just having a resource for the community about what it is we do, and having a sort of a listening session for a month about what's the temperature of the community, what are you hearing, what are you feeling, what is it that you expect from us. And part of it that we think is key is that piece of telling them what we do, so that we don't get a lot of people saying, yeah, you need to, the schools are a problem, or all of that, you know, whatever it might be, fire control, all of the things we don't do, really trying to focus the conversation on what it is the city of West Linn does. And when I say I propose moving pretty fast, I propose that listening session is 1 month long, and that we use a city council work session for it, and that we use city surveying, the weekly email, our social media to get responses back from the community that can start informing the work that you want to do. I proposed a second phase in April where we assemble that, put it together into into a list essentially that we return back to council, tell you what we've heard from the community, what seems to be on the community's mind, and then the council would work to turn that into a initial community's priorities list that has and that really leads to a discussion of, so what do we do with this? And it really attempts to capture what you've been doing and talking about in a way that feels to me very open and honest with the community. Hey, we're starting this off. Now's the time to tell us what you think. Here's where here's where we want to go, is to be able to address some big picture things. But first, we want to know what's on your mind. And really, that is a simple overview of what I propose. It's sort of that work product that we committed to at the end of your last big retreat, talking about work session, talking about finances. So that is what is in the packet. I'm happy to entirely recycle that and have a completely different plan, or use this as a foundation for a council discussion. One idea is you have a retreat coming up at the end of February. We could more fully flesh this out along with another discussion of your goals for the year. So that is what I have. Megan and I stand ready to answer any questions you have.
Thank you for that overview. And my thought was, I was going to ask you, confirm when the retreat is, and I wanted to make sure everybody had a primer on this idea so that we could dive more deeply into it at the retreat, and kind of our thoughts on the community engagement component of the work. Thanks, Councilor Bonington, for your collaboration on that topic. Well, I suppose just thinking about the strategy for right now, we kind of have one main issue before us that I think the staff are looking for direction on, if I'm not mistaken, which is the operations center fee parks component that we've talked about. So can I take the temperature of the city council on that topic? At our last meeting, there were some different ideas brought up related to the funding of that fee. So happy to open the floor up, and then we can talk a little bit about that other idea. Councilor Bright, go ahead.
I think that going ahead with the $5.20 a month would be very helpful for all of this, and then move on to the discussion that the city manager was just describing, where we get the community to say, what's the most important to you? What activities do you want to do at the parks? All of those different things, because we're going to have a lot of different perspectives. And I guess, my biggest concern is, with all of the outreach methods that we have, will we actually get a sufficient number of people responding to us and giving us those ideas, instead of when we come to a conclusion at the end saying, why did you do that? So, I would encourage the community to take advantage of every opportunity that they have to communicate with staff through these various methods, so that we really do know where the community stands.
Thank you, Councilor. I'll go to Councilor Bonington and then Councilor Groner.
Yeah, thank you. I think John did a pretty good job of explaining the concept and how that works. It really comes from asking people, what are some expectations and some values of what are our levels of service and what the future of the city should look like, and then kind of coming back with a plan at that point, kind of leaving money out of it initially, and just making sure that we're all on the same page about what we expect around here. So actually getting people to participate in that is extremely important. It's not at all supposed to be a performative effort or something with a predetermined outcome. But I do think that we all share a lot of the same values and have a lot of the same ideas about where this should go. So I would expect it to end up in a pretty agreeable place, but I could be wrong, and I'm willing to be wrong and consider that in earnest if that's the case. So ultimately, with the parks fee, if we need to move forward with that, that's okay. But my main concern is that we are in agreement about moving forward on a timeline with a plan for the rest of it.
Thank you, Counselor. I think it's a very interesting idea to kind of like, I think of it like, what services do people want and how do people feel about the services that we're providing? And maybe it comes out that people, feel like we need more street sweepers or more police or, different, more parks maintenance or wherever the peak community's at. And maybe there's some themes that come out of that exercise that could be useful in I know we're trying to develop a financial plan for the city. So, and take care of what we already have, a very important component. So thank you for those thoughts. And Councilor Groner, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree. We have to address the larger problem of the whole financial outlook of the city. But I'm a little reluctant to wait for 6 months or so before we get input, before beginning to address the problem. And I think actually doing an early $5.20 increase in the park's utility fee sort of is an attention-grabbing device. It's the first step of a process, but it basically will announce, I would like to present that as the first step of a process rather than a standalone thing.
And it's funding an essential
Yeah.
piece of infrastructure, the Operations Center. Agreed. I'll share, my thoughts are, I think we should move forward with the $5.20. I've been of two minds on staggering it in like over time or just taking care of it at once. The Operations Center is a very important project. We've talked about it so many times here. It's an essential infrastructure project for the city. And I think I'm nervous about it having to be funded solely based on existing revenues of the city, given our financial picture. And it sounds like from conversations that the $5.20 a month, which would turn out to be about $500,000 a year, would really help offset the negative components to the budget from the Operations Center. And I think it's a pretty reasonable fee to get a project of that magnitude, of that size and cost for the community. It shows that we've taken care of our finances to be able to do that. When looking at what other cities are doing, I mean, not to start naming cities, but Tigard is talking about a public works and police facility for $150 million, and we're on a bond to the community, and we're talking about $45 million with really a $5 a month increase for the community. So I think I'm comfortable with it and feel that it's doing the right thing for the community from the standpoint of the duty that we have to take care of our infrastructure and our staff and our people. And anybody who disagrees, I would just say the current site is unacceptable. So I'm sure we'll probably repeat the same kind of stuff at the adoption hearing, but Council President Baumgartner, go ahead. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank all of you for your thoughtful input. It helps me to kind of process what I'm thinking, to hear what all of you are thinking. I agree that the $5.20 to get us just to be satisfying the needs of our current budget is practical. And I would like to continue the conversation with the community about needs versus how we get there. So, and it's an open discussion. We all are very receptive to what the community has to say and want to hear what the community has to say. None of us are interested in dictating to people arbitrarily, we're going to raise this rate or do this. We want to hear what people think, but we are responsible for making sure the city can run. And that is the base of the conversation, as far as I can tell. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for sharing your thoughts. And I think we'll go into the retreat with a good idea in mind about what, so maybe we can discuss some potential pathways for this community conversation there. And does that sound good? I see the city manager nodding over there. So look.
That was exactly my thought. I think that would be a perfect way to do it. We might, if the general concept presented here is of interest, we might continue working at a staff level to flesh it out and have things ready to go. I think we could devote a fair amount of time at the retreat to this topic. This feels like the big one to me. I would also suggest that we look at the priorities that you have adopted, which we adopted as 2-year priorities. They can be tweaked right now, I think, and maybe we add something about this to that list, change some of the language to some of the other ones, and be able to really have a clear plan for the community to see. One thing that I will say about one thing that I've heard council wrestle with, how much do we ask the community? And there's a whole range of asking. There's informal surveys, formal surveys, there's votes on a ballot, right? There's a lot of degrees of asking. And how much do we decide? Because you are saddled with responsibly deciding things all the time. And so the way I see this conversation, you could possibly shape it up as balancing those two needs. You bring years of experience and understanding. Just think of what you osmoted tonight about the water system and how you've done that for years and years now. So your preferences, your experience, your understanding will have to inform what these lists become. But be combined with what the community is telling us. I think that we'll try to find a balance between those two things. Make sure the community has lots and lots of opportunities to share what they think, and make sure that you have a lot of ability to influence what gets decided based on your view of what's needed. And this water system discussion was a perfect example. We all know there has to be adequate money to repair water pipes. It just has to be the case. So finding a balance for that is really important. And I see Megan has come up.
Yes,
to
Director
the
Big
table.
John.
I'm wondering if our Parks and Recreation Director, Megan Big John, has something to say on these topics.
And thank you, Mayor and Council, for talking on this discussion on this topic. I was just wanting to make sure, as I'm looking at the budget documents that we have in our planning, is that additional $5 that we're looking for the general fund is not necessarily for things that are new. So keeping in your mind that that's already money that's spent through the general fund above the fee, but that takes care of the assets we have currently. So when you're looking at options of reduction or what we may do, that's really changing levels of services or not maintaining those assets long-term. And so I wanted to make sure to keep that in mind, and that with recreational programming, that's definitely separate than what the parks maintenance fee goes for. So just to make sure that was clear for everybody.
And just to make it clear, you're talking about not the $5.20 for the op center, but we've talked a little
additional.
bit about in the past, and we'll have continued conversations about
Yes.
the additional parks maintenance deficit.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, thanks for the clarification.
I just didn't, if people are watching at home.
Might have been
Tidings
confused.
are watching at home,
Yeah.
we're funding one project with that.
Correct, yeah.
increase. But then good point about the additional money would really just be to take care of what we have.
Right, and even our capital projects listed right now are just for maintaining safety issues or replacement. So it's just to keep that in mind, that that's where that money is currently being spent.
Thank you for that comment and for all you do for the park system, of course, and your team as well. Good team of people. Any other comments on this topic? On adoption?
So on
Next step.
adoption, hearing your thoughts on timeline would be useful. So if we're doing the $5.20, would you want that to be returned to you immediately and adopted immediately and take effect immediately? Do you have a different date in mind? I did hear the mayor say, drop the idea of dividing it in half and two different adoptions. All of this is possible. And we're happy to support it.
The real thought there was I like to try to minimize impact as much as possible. And I've been wrestling in the head about, do you do a $2.60 increase effective immediately and $2.60 increase effective in July? But then, so that's what I'm thinking about. And I'd love to hear other people's thoughts on how to proceed. I really don't know how much of a difference that would make.
I think we should do it as $5.20 and, effective March or whatever. So bring it back to council this month if we can, or in March and make it effective April. the timeline is a little bit fuzzy. I don't think we should wait till July, and I think we should do the whole thing.
Thank you,
Agreed,
Counselor.
as soon as possible.
Okay. I'm hearing agreement, so we will schedule that for maybe the next meeting then.
Possibly the next meeting or possibly in March with the.
March.
We'll talk to Lauren when she's back in the office.
March business meeting. Yep, okay. Sounds
Perfect.
good.
Thank you.
I've
I
heard loud and
appreciate-
clear.
Appreciate that. That's fantastic. I don't have any other questions on this topic right now.
Okay. Thank you very much, everybody. And the retreat is coming up in just a few weeks on a Friday, so we'll look forward to continued discussion there of the next steps on the city's financial situation and plan. Let's see, we're right on time. Can you believe it? Mr. City Manager, you have 3 minutes for your report. It's 7:50. I'm a couple
Talk
minutes
fast.
late.
I can do that.
I'm kidding.
No, let me go.
Go ahead.
All right, I can do that. So next week, business meeting, February 10th. That's the meeting where we have SMART coming in to talk about the future of transit. Speaking of transit, we did submit the letter to TriMet that was reflecting the council's direction. Appreciate that, and we will see where that goes. That letter included a request to talk more to TriMet in a formal setting and an informal setting. So hopefully that will happen. I actually did get an email from their staff saying, wow, there's a lot of interesting stuff in this letter and we'd love to talk to you more about it. So good. That is fantastic. So February 10th, February 17th, right now I don't think we actually have anything on that agenda. You may have a cancellation in your future or there's 1 or 2 items that might be out there. So just to put that on your radar. But the 27th is the council retreat. It'll be right here, as with previous retreats. A couple of follow-ups on work that, well, I guess I already mentioned the TriMet letter. Legislative session started this week, and man, they're coming up with tons and tons of ideas. And I'll repeat what I said in an email. If you're interested in topics, if you hear about topics, if you hear about other cities doing things and you want to know what we're doing, email me, email Doug Riggs. We are happy to help, but things are moving fast on the big picture stuff that they're doing. Lots of other legislation that we're seeing. We're reading bills, trying to understand it. It's our expectation that not a lot of those smaller things will actually get done as they work on the big topics. They have 35 days. So everything has to be reviewed first time by next Friday and moved along, right? So it's really, really fast. Mayor, sorry, did I cut you off?
Oh, I was just gonna, this brings up the topic of doing a city lobby day, and I wanted to check in with city council. If there's an interest, we could talk to Doug Riggs, our lobbyist, about having setting up some meetings with our legislators during the session and going down, and it would have to be before March 8th, I think, because that's when they have to adjourn. So we could do a doodle poll and try to find a day where folks could go down if there's an interest. So.
Okay.
I see some head nods, so maybe we'll try to work with Doug and see what dates would be good for the schedule to meet with. I mean, I'm sure the schedule is filling up very fast with how fast
Yeah, you bet.
We'll check in with him on that.
You bet. That's great. Thank you for that idea. I only had actually 2 other things on my list for today. One is we, at your direction, we put together a survey for the community on the marijuana dispensary topic, which you heard one community member come, and I wanted to make sure that nothing had changed on that. You still want us to have some communication with the community about what their interests are on that topic. Okay, in that case, we will do that. And the last thing I was going to say is before you leave, grab one of these. If you haven't seen it, this is the Wesleyan Chamber of Commerce Love Local bingo card. And you can grab one. I don't know about the upstairs lobby. You too. Also, you guys have to do this. So just 9 little things you can do to support local business after the holiday season. And super simple things. Leave a positive Google review for local business, eat a meal at a local business. And then if you drop this off by the end of March, you entered into a contest. So that is a nice thing, and I appreciate the chamber for doing that. That is all that I wanted to mention tonight.
Thank you for the good report. Anything else from the city council for the good of the order? See none, so with that, we are adjourned until Tuesday at 6 PM. We'll see you then, and good luck to the Operations Center tomorrow with the public hearing, Planning Commission. Good luck to our own city. I'm working on setting up a lobby day also for DC, for the city, for some meetings for us to, I reached out to Janelle Bynum. It'd be fun to go up to have our own hill day.